Hello everybody, I hope you're all warm and safe and dry and well. I know it's been a difficult week for a lot of people. If you're new to my channel, my name's Diane, and each week I welcome you into my sewing room and I share with you what I've been up to. So if you want a little bit of light-hearted relief, grab yourself a drink and make yourself comfy, and we'll talk about quilts for a few minutes just to give a little bit of respite to whatever else is going on in the world. So back to quilting, and if you saw last week's video you'll see that I finished a flimsy of a chandelier quilt, and I'd just in the process of starting to quilt it. And you'll notice that I do my own quilting on my little domestic machine. It's a little bit of a struggle. I can't do anything fancy. I think that's a separate art in itself, isn't it? Some of this beautiful quilting. I've never done free motion quilting. I have bought myself a foot. I haven't yet attached it to the machine, but I might do that one day. Not yet. I've got lots of other things first. But anyway, we use what we have and we make do, and it's simple, the quilting. It holds everything in place, and I'll show you how I approached a larger quilt. Looking at that footage, it looks like I'm trying to force somebody's trousered leg through the neck of my machine. No people were hurt in the making of that quilt. I'm not sure if you can make it out, but what I've done so far is I've quilted on the edge of these white sashing strips in all directions. So there's 2 seams so far on all of the sashing going both ways. And now I'm going to put another seam on the 3rd row in from the edge of the block and go all the way across one side and then all the way across the other side. Well, I've gone all over the quilt now, so we've got the 2 seams on the sashing, and then I've gone 1 seam everywhere on this 3 strips away from the edge on both sides. And I've decided now that I'm going to put the next row of quilting on this seam here. So I've got 1, 2, 3 blocks on that side, 1, 2, 3 on that side. I'm not marking the quilt, I'm just taking my ruler, running it along the seam that I want to follow, and then with my thumbnail I'm just scoring a mark into the expanse of fabric, so the white there, and then down here. So I'm going to follow that down to the bottom like that. So I can see there's a crease when I'm sewing it. That meets the requirements of the batting. So for this quilt I used a Hobbs Heirloom 80-20, so 80% cotton, 20% polyester. And I tend not to use chalk because I'm a little bit concerned about people with allergies, and I don't use the heat erasable pens. I'm always worried that if it turns really cold and hasn't been washed, that the lines might reappear. I have heard some stories about that happening. So if I can just use my thumbnail or one of the implements, one of the notions that I've got handy just to mark a line, I tend to do that. And if you are new to our little community here, people do leave lots of lovely comments, and I do read them all, sometimes not as quickly as they've been posted, but I do read them all. But I did read Patricia's. Wouldn't it be lovely to add a dragonfly on the back of the quilt? And Patricia's comment was in response to the message I'd given out when I was making the flimsy. I did say that I was going to back it in a tone on tone blue, and to be honest my knee was a little bit painful, and so I just really wanted to get the quilting finished, and I hadn't thought about the design of the back. And then when I read that message I thought, yes, you are absolutely right, Patricia, I will do that. And also I've bought these lovely new woven labels to go on the back of my quilts from a small business in Wales, Hugh Lloyd. and I really like the look of these. So I'm going to pop one of these onto the label, and then I will hand sew that onto the back, and then I'll finish quilting so that some of the quilting will catch this label, hopefully. So like I've mentioned before, I'm not sponsored by anyone, but I was really pleased with those labels. They are woven instead of the usual printed ones that I've been using. And I did buy them off Amazon, but it's on the small business section. So I've left that little address for you in case you're interested. I would recommend them. So there's a question for you. Labels. Do you label your quilt? I never used to. When I made them just for personal use, I never labelled them. But when I started to sell my quilts, I did put a label on. I had some printed and I put them on because I think that my customers like to see evidence that they are buying a handmade product and it's been made by a real person. I'm real. So that's why I put labels on now. I don't put any other information on. I just put my name, and that got me thinking about information that should go on labels. And so I did have a little look at what some of the recommendations are about information that should go on a label, and I'll share that with you now. So I looked at the recommendations from the National Quilters Circle, and the representative from that organisation was Ashley, and she said, or he, I suppose Ashley could be a man's name, that you can put any information that you think is important on the label on the back. But she recommends, or he, that you put the name of the person who made the quilt, who quilted it, when it was made, who it was made for, and the designer of the quilt. And there was a little amendment that said if you are going to enter a quilt in an AQS quilt show, the designer needs to be recognised. So if you are using someone else's design, then strictly speaking, you should get written permission from that person. So reading that information, I understand now why I was contacted. Somebody had seen me making the face quilt. I'll insert a picture here. And she said that she was inspired by that design to create one of her own to enter into a quilt show. And she asked if I would give her permission to use my design, which of course I did. And she said that she would give written acknowledgement that it was my original design. So I understand now where that comes from. But I don't put any of that information on my labels. I only put my name because I am making videos of the way I design these quilts. And so if further down the line, in the many years to come, if anyone wants to find out about where I was and how the quilt was made and who it was made for, all of that information is captured somewhere. Well, it's either in my journal or it's on YouTube. You know, I don't think in future times people will collect them or anything like that. I hope they've all been used to death and they've all fallen apart somewhere and they're on someone's compost bin. That's what I really hope. But so labels, yeah, let me know what you do with your labelling. What information do you put on yours? Interesting thing. So now I will leave you with a shot of the back of the quilt, a close-up, so you can see the quilting and then the full back of the finished quilt. And now you can have a look at the front of the quilt, and then I take you in for a close-up so you can have a look at all the different colours and the way that they work together. And there we go, it's all finished. So I finished the chandelier quilt, and I mentioned last week I didn't know where I was going to go next, and so I thought I'll just come in and tidy up. And instead of just cutting up the pieces that were left over and processing them, I thought I'd make some small blocks. Oh, you know what's going to happen next, don't you? Oh dear. Well, I finished the chandelier quilt last night, and so today I'm going to tidy the room. So on my desk there is my journal, my quilting journal. So in that I need to add details, get that up to date. And on the table by that are all the pieces of fabric that are left over from the Chandelier quilt, so I will process those scraps. So the first thing I've sorted out is all of these little bits of fabric that had the black on, and I've made those into little 4 patches. And now what I'm going to do is to surround the 4 patch with the colour, and then I'll go around again in a black, and I want to finish off with 5.5-inch squares. Well, I've just completed my first sample block. So once I made that first block, I imagined a quilt, don't we all? And this quilt design has been simmering in the back of my mind for quite a while. I didn't know how I was going to put it together or how it would look, but I really liked the Bethany salt fabric, these dragonflies, and there was some left over, and I thought I'll use that and I'll make this particular quilt. I'm not going to tell you anything more about the design because I will show it you next week. I will reveal it on the display board in the order that it should be seen. I don't want to give too many clues away because it's a puzzle quilt, and I want to see if you can get it before I reveal all. So once I realised I was going to make this quilt, I knew I didn't have enough fabric left from last week's Chandelier quilt, so I went back to the fabric shop that I use, and they did have yardage of this dragonfly range when I first bought these bundles, but it was all gone apart from there's about 1/2 metre of this left yardage, so I bought that. There were 5 different colours in the range. They've all gone except for this one. I would be able to order it online, I imagine, but there were 3 fat quarter bundles left, so I bought those, and that will be plenty for what I want to make in this quilt, and there'll probably be some left over. So that's for next week. So that was the start of my fabric haul for this week. I also had something in the post. I ordered some wide back, this lovely pink here. Now this was from Rainbow Fabrics. This was an absolute steal. It's a beautiful cotton pink, as you can see, with floral on. I want to make a tulip quilt. I have designed it, and it's going to have pink flowers on. It's going to be very feminine looking, and a white background with, you know, lots of tulips everywhere. And I was looking for some backing, and when this came up, it was a silly price. I can't remember how silly it was, but I will put that on the screen. And so I asked for 2 meters of this, and then I had a message from them saying they hadn't got 2 meters. They had one which was 1.45 meters and one which was 1.90 meters. Would I accept that? So I said, yeah, of course. For the backing. And so they only offered it me for the price of the 2 meters, which was already ridiculous. So I've got plenty of backing for that. And then this also popped up, which is another wide back, a floral. Again, another ridiculous price. Beautiful cotton. And there's a bird on here somewhere. I don't know where he is. I'm thinking this might go on the back of the quilt there. I'm not sure. I'll have to see what it looks like as we progress. So again, 2 meters of that. So there's plenty of that for the backing of a quilt. And so that is all of the fabric that I've bought for myself this week. But I had a sort of Pat Sloan experience. If you watch her show, she sometimes opens mail and she receives gifts from viewers, and that happened to me. Most unexpected. I hope you don't mind me mentioning your name, but Estella is the person that contacted me. She said that she has some surplus fabric that she'd bought from Missouri Star, and she wasn't going to use it, but would I consider accepting it to make Project Linus quilts? So if you're new to my channel, I do make Project Linus quilts, and I said of course I would love to accept some fabric, and I will definitely make some Project Linus quilts with anything that you send. And I can't believe the beautiful fabric. So it's from Missouri Star, I think. So there were 2 of these pieces, fat quarter bundles, and it's called Paws. There's 5 pieces in each, and they're very pastel-y colours for a young child. So there's little kittens and blooms and cats, small cats, more cats, and some flowers. Now, there's a lot of cats there, and Estella is a dog person. They breed hounds, beautiful dogs. I will put a link in the bottom of this video if you're interested in adding to your family a beautiful, beautiful dog. I think you need to have a look at their site, but I'll put that link there. So she sent those. Now, another channel is Lessons Learned, Sherry McGill, and she introduced on Wednesday she's going to do a sew-along. I have never done a sew-along. Her sew-along involves jelly bars, which are half of a layer cake. So they're 5 inches by 10 inches, and there's so many books that she's got in a series. And what she's going to do is make a bar quilt, and she's taken some of the designs from each of the book and she's going to make a quilt. So each week you'll make a particular block for 1 row, and then at the end you're going to have a complete quilt. I think she said it's going to be about 72 inches, so it's a big quilt. And she didn't say that you needed any particular tools. You don't need any rulers, particular sizes, notions or anything like that. So she just talked about the fabric requirements, and she said it would be great for a scrappy quilt. So I'm thinking, I've never done this before, I might make something along the lines of Sherry's bar quilt. So I will look and see what block she's making. I won't make as many, but I will make some. I think that would be lovely. So that's on a Wednesday, so I'll make some blocks there and I'll show you how I get on with that. I will need to buy some fabric for the background. I'm thinking maybe a buttery yellow would complement all of those, so I need to sort that out. So there was 2 5 bundles there. There was also 2 of these charm packs full of bees, and I've opened the one. It's called Mellow Yellow. It's greys and whites and yellows, and there's bees and dragonflies, and I've looked at the squares within, and there are at least 2 of every design, mainly 3, and I have never worked with charm packs before, but I did have an idea of how I would use one if I ever got hold of one. Well, I've got 2 now, and so I know the sort of thing I want to do with that. So if you've got charm packs, that might be of interest in the future. And then she sent again another fat quarter bundle. There's 10 pieces in this one, and this one is called Butterfly Laurel, and lovely, lovely fabrics again. Look at that. She did say that if there was anything in there that I wanted to keep to add to my stash, I could. I just feel like I would be taking away from someone at Project Liners. I did work with child protection for quite a few years, so I do know how important a lovely hug from a quilt could be for a lot of people. But I was tempted to keep this one. Oh, I just love that. My most favourite piece of all the fabric that I've got here. But no, I will use them. That will be a joy. I have no idea what I'm going to do with that one yet. And then she sent, there's a Riley Blake, there's a metre of this, Roman numerals, background or even backing, one of the other. And then it's not finished. Told you she was very generous. 2 of these sealed packs, and there are 2 yards in there, 72 by 44. So there's blues and there's pinks. Again, that would make lovely either backing for Project Liners or incorporated in. And then she sent me a beautiful card here. with a lovely message, and I will put that in my journal. And I do flick back my journals, my quilting journals, and have a look what I've done over the years and happy times, and that will be in there, so I'll keep that one. And then she sent me a couple of these Missouri Star. So if you ever on the website thinking about buying, I've got to say, look with caution, because I never have. And I thought, well, I wonder what sort of prices they have for their goods. These lovely little notion boxes, they've got the little Missouri Star tag on, but the quality is really lovely on their things. And they have these daily deals. I understand why Estella does go down that rabbit hole, because it's really difficult not to press the buy button. Some good bargains to be had if you want to have a look at Missouri Star. And Estella also recommended the Fabric Cafe. So again, lots of bargains to be had there, and they ship globally. So lots and lots of fabric. I've just made the decision. I'm going to alter a couple of these blocks while I've been talking to you, and I can see the reflection. There was a little bit of a change I was thinking of making, and now that's been confirmed. So that's it for this week. Quite a lot of things, quite diverse. I hope you are managing if you've been caught out in all this bad weather and unsettling times. But find some way of just giving your mind a little bit of respite so that it can gather strength to deal with all the things that, will face us in our worlds. So that's it for this week. I'm going to close now. I'm going to alter those blocks and settle down and watch the rugby. I follow Leicester Tigers, in case you're interested. Tigers. That's it. Take really good care of yourselves, and I will see you next week. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your sewing. Bye for now.